Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. As a victim of family court and an advocate for family court reform, Christine Smith finds it very important that her hearing and case be transparent and available to other victims. She has gone on my podcast and she has attached the podcast and written transcript with her hearing. Her hearing has not been decided what date it will be in May. And it will be later this month, the hearing for her personal Pennsylvania taxes, and she's going to try her best to prove family court racketeering at the hearing, and she needs help. She's looking for journalists, attorneys, ADA advocates, and court watchers. If you have any questions, you can email Christine at kristine16smith@gmail.com or Christine Smith on Facebook. So I have a return guest. I'm so happy to have Dr. Paul Zeitz on. He was last on March 2nd, 2022, season 3, episode 27. And we are going to talk about his book, Revolutionary Optimism, and the 7 steps for living as a love-centered activist. And we have a lot to talk about. And please tell us how you started this book.
Hey, Marianne, great to be back, and thanks for having me. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, probably about the time I was on your show, I was imagining about 2 years ago, I was starting to work on revolutionary optimism. I myself was feeling a sense of despair and anxiety and sometimes hopelessness about the state of our country and our world and all the suffering that was swelling around me. And I could see the future as a path of destruction only. I couldn't see any hope or any ray of possibility. So I would go under the covers and hide.
Right,
And
right.
so I learned a long time ago that I have this other side of me, which is an optimistic side. So I decided to pioneer and create revolutionary optimism and define these 7 steps to help me be living the path of love for my own self-liberation and for our collective liberation. And so I've been defining and living into these 7 steps. It's a handbook, right? So it has practices and teaching and stories, and I am using it to great effect. It's having it's buoying me during these very challenging times.
And that's what people need right now. I mean, I know I have been going through anxiety on a bunch of other things besides what's going on in this world too. That does not help. People need to be lifted up. And I think your book would be great to read with the revolutionary optimism. We need to know more. So how did you come across the 7 steps?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of self-reflection. I studied myself. It's like the way that my mind operates, like as my training as a preventive medicine physician, and then for my 3+ decades of like 35 years of advocacy, campaigning, and movement building. I knew that back in 2022, I anticipated that 2024 was going to be a crazy year and that there was going to be transformational possibilities. That perhaps we're going through a passage as humanity. We're going to go through strife and suffering, but also there's the possibility that it could be a Kairos moment of possibility where transformation and healing can occur at great scale and with great speed. So I don't know if I'm right, but that's what I'm sensing, and that's what I'm offering with my book.
I think people need that because some people have no direction on what they should do when they have this anxiety.
Yeah, people feel overwhelmed. The problems are so vast,
Ah,
and people are struggling with their daily lives. Like, the economic inequality. People are living paycheck to paycheck. Our
mm,
country is set up with very wealthy, and everyone else is like kind of struggling.
mm,
People are having a hard time with cost of living increases, with food prices. Affordable housing is hard to find. People can't pay their medical debts or their student loans. People are really, raising kids is becoming harder and harder. the American dream that I grew up with,
Oh,
where you could have one working parent and you could have a vacation every year, you could live a comfortable life. That's gone. People are working two or three jobs, and just people are in survival mode. So that's the challenge. I'm just offering revolutionary optimism as another activity to build friendships and build camaraderie with others around you. I do recommend people consider, using the book themselves for their own self growth and self exploration. But I think it would be really fun to do it with a group of people, either friends or family or neighbors or church groups or spiritual groups or civic groups in any schools, where people can like get to know each other better, because the practices are not easy. And one of the big messages in the book is that we are in this together. We are not alone. And the I just feel like the book is an opportunity for creating that space in our lives. We're so caught up in our technology and our, like separating and division. And I hope revolutionary optimism could be like a fun thing to do together with other people that you care about.
I think that's really smart because we were talking earlier before we popped on the podcast, and like you said, it's a workbook, and people can get together as in groups and go over things and just create discussion of what is concerning people and share their, I don't know, experiences and what bothers them and what concerns them about the future of even their own lives.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And in the book, there are practices, or I call them RXs or prescriptions,
Right.
playing on my role as a doctor. They're really practices. Each step has a few, two or three things to do that you can work on. Like in step one, I'll just give you one quick example. It's go time. It's like waking up every day and like asking your question about how can I serve today?
Mhm.
And it's just like you can start living as a love-centered activist immediately. And you can, I introduced the four circles of service. So you can serve yourself, self-care, self-love, number one priority. Then serving your family, loved ones, your parents, your children, your neighbors, your community is the third circle. And then lastly is the community, or our world, our global community. So you can serve in all different ways, and everything counts. Every love-centered action counts. So I have a sense that people feel like they're not doing enough. They feel guilty. They feel shame, all these emotions that I think are, not the truth. The truth is that every love-centered action counts. And so a lot of what people are doing counts. And they're
Definitely.
already like, I just want to have them honor how amazing they are in what they're already doing.
Oh, definitely. A lot of people, they're trying, but they don't know how to help. And some people are in such an anxiety and depression mode. And even I was going through this back in, we'll say 2015. And my mother said, I hope I don't cry, but my mother said, go into work and make somebody else happy.
Right.
And that's what, I did. I went into work and suddenly my mood changed. And I
Mm,
was joking with my patients,
mm,
trying to lift up their spirits. And, as I think I told you, I was a heart nurse for quite some time, then I went into the ER. But anyway, that's how you have to come out of yourself when you're going through anxiety, depression, stress, whatever it could be, and make other people happy. I've always told, some of my patients, you're put on this earth to make the world a better place.
mm, mm. Yeah, that's really a great segue to step two, which is self-liberation and unleashing our full power. And a lot of times we're our greatest limiter. We have this thing in our heads called the inner dragon, I call it, that
Mhm.
tells us we're not good enough, or we're inadequate, or my inner dragon told me I was stupid and ugly, and self criticism out the wazoo.
Mhm.
So I've learned to understand what that is and know that it's like healable and tameable. And I don't have to live in that story. I don't have to live in that narrative. I can unleash myself. And that's really what self-liberation is about. And that's what you were talking about in a way. Like in that part of the book, I do, help. help people understand that they can search for their life's purpose, and they
Mhm.
can be on a inquiry and an exploration of what that is, and they can be shape-shifting and evolving and transforming themselves over time in the
Mhm.
quest to understand what that is for them. It's not always clear right away. It takes some experimentation and some failure sometimes too, to figure all that out.
And it could even take months to realize your own potential.
Oh, or years.
Years. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I expected in months though.
Yeah, yeah. I like months better.
Yeah. But it can be done to come out of yourself and to just live to serve and help others.
Yeah, I mean, it's healing, right? When you step into action mode and you're taking a stand for something beyond yourself through with love-centered action, yes, that's proven as another kind of healing modality. And so is advocacy and campaigning and movement building. And I'm a big advocate for movement building. And step 6 is getting into peaceful revolutions. Like, I really think we're in a revolutionary phase of human uh, history,
Mhm,
hopefully. Peaceful revolution, I should say.
mhm.
And yeah, so.
Well, I know, like, a lot of people are afraid of what's gonna happen. We don't know day to day what can happen,
Mm,
and I don't like living in fear.
mm,
Um, I've always been told, "Live in the now," and I don't
mhm.
think it's very hard to do. It's great advice if you can do it.
Yeah, it's a practice. It's hard because we're living in a society, our social, economic, and political systems are creating this divide between us, and also it's in our minds, this greed machine,
Oh, yeah.
and it's a fear-based system. It's stimulating fear and like stimulating like I have to protect myself, and it's very othering. It's like creating a culture of separateness, and that's by design. That's like it's how the system is designed to work. So we
Mhm,
just have to recognize that and then transform it, in my view.
mhm,
And I believe there's like a tipping point where enough of us are aligned. I think we're the majority.
mhm,
And if we can wake ourselves up and rise and figure this out together,
mhm,
because we're in this together. I don't have all the answers. No one does. It's complicated. We're going through a passage, as you said. It's
mhm.
We have to like embrace our common humanity. That's what I'm advocating for.
It's very hard to do with there's a lot of well, a lot of angry people out there, I've sensed. I don't know what to do with these people, but, I just always try to be as optimistic as I can,
Hmm, hmm,
and, for the most part, we were talking earlier about apathy, and that's, like, no energy to do anything or do anything about anything, and
mm.
this is bad because you need to, I don't know, come out of that somehow and help your fellow man. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And those states of anger and fear-based separation, and that lead to a sense of, uh, despair and real you don't feel like you have any power to do anything, the apathy you're talking about.
Mhm,
um I think that's why I'm recommending that people like, start by creating a group of people. I should have said this at the beginning of the show as a doctor. Revolutionary optimism and bravery and being courageous, for example, is very contagious. So if you actually start acting in this way yourself, if your life starts transforming,
mhm,
and you're doing this with a few other buddies or a crew of you, then it becomes something that other people become interested in. And
mhm,
then you can be opening and welcoming and creating safe space so that when people are ready, if they choose, they can experiment with revolutionary optimism as as another thing to try. I'm not saying our revolutionary optimism, or RO, I call it, is going to work for everyone all the time. but I offer it and I invite people to experiment and explore it to
Mhm.
see if it does work for you, either now or down the road. And it's a handbook, so you can use any part of it that you like. And I like use it like when I'm in difficult circumstances. I remember my
Mhm.
practices so that I can generate myself on the, in the as my highest possible self, and be have integrity and authenticity with my commitment to be walking the path of love. So I have to use love speech.
Mhm.
That's a practice to make sure that everything that comes out of my mouth is uplifting and loving.
Oh,
Because
definitely.
I haven't always used my mouth that way or my speech that way.
Well, sometimes things come out the wrong way and you don't mean it to.
That's true. That's true. And it's also taking accountability and
Right.
learning. Like, yeah, if my words or my actions have a negative impact on the other, I don't see that, I have like a blind spot.
Mhm.
I'm still responsible in some way for the person's reaction. Now, that's a hard concept that I've been, learning to understand. But it's true. Like, if as long as I'm loving and I'm not shaming other people, I'm counter shaming, I'm
Mhm.
doing uplifting love speech. And to the angry people you're referring to, look, I've been very angry. I've had murderous rage. I am angry right now too. So I
Mhm.
do think there's a strategic role for anger. I'm not saying get rid of anger. I'm saying deploy anger in a healthy, loving way rather than in a way that creates more trauma. And so I think that's really the opportunity that we have. Anger is a very important emotion, and I'm angry. I feel betrayed by my government. I feel
Mhm.
betrayed that it's failing to address the climate emergency. I
Mhm.
feel betrayed that fascism is on the rise in my
Mhm.
country, and
Mhm.
our government is allowing us to potentially lose our democracy, whatever form of it we think we have anyway.
Mhm.
Losing that and losing our rights and our freedoms as people living in the United States. Like, I'm angry about that.
Mhm.
I'm fed up and angry.
So many people are. And like they say, hurt people hurt people. And that's a scary statement. When I hear that, it's like, oh man, I'm so deep. That depresses me even more. Like, oh my gosh. You know, if don't you think if a person is depressed, anxiety, and it's caused by something, why not seek a counselor, to someone to talk to get to the root of the problem?
Absolutely. I recommend everyone keep doing what they're doing. They get their therapy, they go for healing modalities, whatever. They talk to their faith leader, they have spirit buddies. People have to use all the resources that are out there. I call it like the quills in my quiver,
Mm,
the arrows. I need all my tools in my toolbox,
mhm,
so that I'm always like working on myself.
mhm,
But I do have a response to your question about like hate and how to deal with it in a way,
mhm,
and this anger, because I put myself in a situation a couple weeks ago. I was in Israel, Palestine, and I was part of a group of rabbis that was delivering food aid to
mhm,
people in Gaza. And we went to the border at Israel-Gaza border at the Erez crossing, and
mhm,
we were stopped by the Israeli police.
mhm,
And several of us, not me, but seven of us were out of 30 were arrested by the police, and they were charged for bringing food aid to Gaza. And I had spent a lot of time. I'd spent the whole week there, really seeing a whole population, two populations who love the people in their own population. They all love the land, and
mhm.
they hate each other with such intensity. And so
Right.
I was reminded of Martin Luther King's words when he said, "Along the way, along the way of life, someone." Or some of us, I'll say, must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate. This
Mhm,
can only be done by projecting the ethic of love to the center of our lives. So everything I'm talking about is really in the legacy of Martin Luther King
mhm.
and Gandhi and peaceful resistance as a method for transformation and healing and repair, and doing it in a trauma informed way, and making safe spaces, building beloved community, really doing that now. We need to do that.
Right. It's hard to with that whole situation, it, they're fighting over a piece of land, and it's gone on for centuries. Um, it's like someone has to what, give in? No one
No,
wants.
I mean, I am part of my pilgrimage to that land was to really explore all the collaborations and cooperations that are going on between Israelis and Palestinians, two
Mhm,
peoples, one homeland. So I met a lot of groups that are doing grassroots community connection, community support, beautiful things happening every day.
mhm,
People protecting each other, supporting each other in every possible way.
mhm,
Then I met a political movement, a people's peace movement
mhm,
of Palestinians and Israelis that are trying to build a political movement that gets elected officials at the local level and in their national parliament, the Knesset, and that's how they would, get governing authority. Ultimately, I think they want. And then I met a group called A Land for All that
mhm,
has a new political vision: Israeli-Palestinian shared leadership, and we as outsiders should honor local people's ideas. And
mhm,
as an international solidarity positioning, we should be in support of their ideas rather than more of this external imposition, which is what created this whole mess anyway.
mhm.
And so I'm really excited about it. It's two states, two independent, self-determined states with a confederation model, like one homeland, like the EU. Like they're sharing the land. They have to share natural resources. They have to share water supply. They have to share utilities. They have to share security. There's things that they're going to have to do together once they can get to peaceful coexistence. And
Yeah.
we think it's possible. So that's what I do as a revolutionary optimist. I'm buoying myself, hooking onto a new, positive, uplifting political vision and getting behind it, putting my energy behind that,
Mhm.
rather than getting caught up in the battlefield of social media or whatever else is
Like
what other ways that I could be spending my time.
like the politics of it all. Just stay out of the politics.
No, no,
But
I
help.
I actually I believe in going into politics.
Uh-huh.
Politics is the competition of ideas, right? So it's like some people play football, some people play tennis, some people do different kinds of sports. I like to play in the competition of ideas thing. And I invite all people of the United States to play in the game of ideas. We need ideas. We need creativity. We
Mhm.
need imagination. We're in a bad place. We have a dire situation right here, right now. And I do believe this is a time to unlock our collective creativity.
Oh, I agree. These grassroots movements are a really great idea. They've been going on with Martin Luther King way back then.
Oh, way back. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The decade between 2010 and 2020 was the largest number of grassroots popular movements, popular demonstrations on the planet. And some of those people have been studying all this. It's like a new phenomena. People are rising globally, taking a stand for human rights, taking a stand for
Mhm.
justice. And, there is an opportunity for there to be, a confluence of, global transformation and global revolutionary, peaceful transformation, love-centered, where we create new social, economic, and political systems based on equality and human rights and dignity for all. I mean, the systems in place now were created out of a very different system of caste system, a
Mhm.
system where one group of people control the other. That played out in colonialism and other ways. It plays out in racism. It plays out in extractive capitalism. So all these things are a legacy of the past in my in my imagination.
Yes. Yes.
And we everyone's ready. We have regeneration economics. We can do a circular economy. We can regenerate our environment, and we can regenerate use of commodities and supplies rather than extract, extract, extract.
Mhm.
And we can create an equitable playing field, and we can get economic equality going. So everyone has a chance to, pursue their dreams and their ideas, and not just like the inherited elites.
Mhm. Definitely, everyone has got to have autonomy. I notice a lot of people just are letting other people think for them.
Hmm.
That's what I think your workbook would come in handy for these people.
Yeah, I take that on head on actually,
Yeah.
because I think that's true. And in step five called Imagineering, I do talk about that specifically because we have to understand that we inherit narratives and stories from that we have in our own minds, but we also inherit them from our society and from our community and from our political leaders and from religious leaders. And it's easier, and most people are satisfied with just attaching to what someone else's narrative. It's
Mhm.
actually hard work to, to unpack that and actually have to think for ourselves.
Oh, right,
And
right.
that freedom, people are afraid of that kind of freedom. So it's like easier to be like, okay, I believe what they say. So then they become responsible. And so chapter 27 is about unlocking political imagination. And I
Mhm.
really unpack this limiting beliefs that we inherit within ourselves, within our from our loved ones, from our community or our world. Like actually the oppressive social, economic, and political systems that are based on caste, separation and segregation,
Mhm.
basically, that lives inside our minds. And
Yeah.
that's what is like that limits us from thinking that we can actually solve these challenges that we're describing, the super crises.
Mhm.
So we can heal and repair from the super crises, and we have to heal our minds. We have to liberate our that. We have to like unpack that. It's hard work,
It
but it's
is.
possible.
Right, right. It's very, very difficult to get through to people, that just don't wanna listen to you. And this goes for, like, a lot of situations, from whether it be, family court, the court system, any family situation people are having.
Yep.
Uh, you know, where do you get people to actually really start thinking for themselves instead of believing what someone else has said, even when that's a lie?
Well, I think what you were just talking about is really the essence of the what where we need to go. So
Mhm.
the step four in the book, the first three steps are about self-liberation. The last three steps are about collective liberation. But step four, right in the center of the book, is the heartbeat of the book. And
Mm.
it's really about peace crafting. And it's about how we relate to each other. It's the space between you and me right here. And I offer a peace crafting cycle. I try to use, we need new language for a new era. So peace crafting is like a new term, and it has four parts to it. It's being a listening friend, really practicing listening and learning, especially to angry people. Like I really want to hear what's going on for them, and
Mhm.
really want to understand what's up. I think
Yeah.
it's really important. And then also, the second part of it is embracing multiple perspectives, like recognizing that I have my perspective and you have your perspective. And I actually think there's 8 billion perspectives.
Right.
Every human has their own perspective, rather than everyone having to have my perspective.
Mhm.
So that's a whole different way of thinking. And then the third part is like responding with, instead of being triggered, which I can be from how some people's think that they're right or their ideas are the only way or whatever. Instead of that, I respond with love speech. And that's a practice. How do I make sure every utterance is loving? And I
Mm.
really have to work on that every day. And then the last part is really building trust
Mhm.
and building trust. And that, sometimes in my own life, and I've observed in others, people use trust as an on and off switch, like I trust you
Mhm.
or I don't. And that can apply to an individual, or it could apply to an organization or, a country. I trust you or I don't. And the idea of this part is that there's a trust-o-meter. Make it dynamic,
Mhm.
make it open for people you love, people in your life to go up or down a trust-o-meter. And for organizations that you might want to work with, be open to like rebuilding trust. And
Mhm.
yeah, there are times where you need a cutoff valve, and that's all part of
Yeah.
it. But like generally, you don't want to limit everyone. You don't want to over limit yourself.
Right, right, and I hear people talk about, I don't I heard someone talk on TikTok and they were saying, "I don't have unconditional love. I'm not Jesus." And, they say parents have unconditional love, but how many times can you get verbally abused or emotionally abused and let someone keep coming back?
Yeah,
That's
so yeah, I mean, my approach is I love everyone unconditionally. I see everyone as a divine spark. I see everyone as a pure soul. I mean, this is a practice. I try to see everyone that way.
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
working on that. And then I use my trust meter. Like, no, I can love you 100%, or I can try to practice loving you 100%. And I don't trust you. So I don't talk to you, or I don't, or if you're toxic, you're not in my field.
Mm.
Like there's boundaries, healthy boundaries, safe boundaries
Mhm.
for my well-being and and collective well-being.
Mhm.
So I think that's how I do it. That's how I try to create it in my life. It's very challenging.
Right, right, because people don't want to be doormats either.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Nothing about being a revolutionary optimist is saying giving up your truth or giving up your stand. It's quite the opposite. It's like clarifying what your truth is, clarifying what your stand is, and then bringing it into the world with love
Mhm.
and sharing it. Share, your truth as your love offering. And
Mhm.
that's what I think is so important to be able to do.
Yeah, people need positivity, and it's got to be more well known than it is now. I know that sounds like really crazy, but people just are down on everything. Like you said, the socioeconomics, taxes are going up, all these problems. People are drinking more. I mean, there was always a saying that, well, the Russian people, they drink a lot. And because of their socioeconomical problems in their country, this is why they're drinking a lot. You know what I'm saying? Um, that very well can happen here. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, they're that to me, those are addictions, and addictions are a sign of, trauma and pain and suffering. People are masking their emotions,
Mhm.
the grief that they feel, the betrayal, the anger. I mean, I do. I'll have a drink or I'll, do
Yeah.
things to,
Yeah.
calm myself or
Mhm.
manage my intense emotions. And so part of it is the healing opportunity, like the work that you do, bringing people into healing spaces and to release that anger. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual violence. We talked about that on the last show. And I lived for decades with intense inner anger and murderous rage. And I thought it ended up eating me up. Like some of it was directed at myself. And I had a nasty tongue and I would let it out at others. And so, what I've learned for myself on my own journey is that I can have strategic anger. I'm not saying give up anger, but I don't let the anger undermine my inner joy or my inner happiness or my inner sense of self-love, or, like there's a distinction there. It's
Mhm.
not, it's like there's toxic anger and strategic, healthy anger.
Yes.
And I tried to share about that in the book. And the book is the book I wish I had at 15 or 20 or
Right.
30. Like I wish someone would give it, I would have taken it at 60, a handbook like this to help me navigate, my journey in the best, so I could be the best possible version of myself. I think people are yearning for that everyone's questing for self-realization and self-fulfillment.
Do you think is it possible you could get this into the school systems?
I think that's a great idea. If
You
you
know?
or your listeners have a way of doing that, I
Uh-huh.
think that would be great. It's really step 7 is about unifying. It's like not interpartisan, interracial. It's about it's like a collective, sensibility about our interconnectedness, both within ourselves and between us. So I do think it could be part of a curriculum in education. Right now, I think let's see how it goes. If you want to, if any of your listeners want to help me do that, please reach out.
Right, because I noticed a trend, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of kids are just turning against their parents. And I don't know where this is coming from or who's encouraging this. You could be in an intact family and have your kids turn against you. That's I'm running into parents that have this problem. Or you could be divorced and you have one parent poisoning the child's mind
Mm,
against the
mhm.
other parent. So I think it would be helpful to get this into maybe like a 10th grade audience where they can kind of comprehend what's in your book, and hopefully this won't happen with their parents.
Yeah, no, I mean, my parents were divorced when I was 19, but they had a bad relationships that I was aware of since I was 11. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's still, we have a 50% divorce rate in the United States. So,
Mhm.
a lot of people are dealing with the pain of that separation that happens. And maybe it's healthy and maybe it's the right thing to do, but it still is difficult and a struggle. And it can be poisoning. I definitely witnessed that in my own life and around me.
Mhm.
So, and then I don't know about children turning on their parents. I haven't had that experience. So I'd love to learn more about that from you and others. Uh, I don't know. I think there's something going on in our society. I think COVID was very disruptive, led to a lot of isolation, a lot of, and then people deepened their technology addictions and went into the games and the virtual reality spaces and all that. And those are dangerous,
Mhm.
and we haven't really learned. We don't have guidelines from society. The government it's completely unregulated. It's like the Wild West out there. And so the online spaces are also being filled with predators. So
Uh-huh.
we talked about childhood sexual abuse, and we now know that the predator networks are really quite advanced on the online spaces. Both the iCloud, for example, is unregulated and unmonitored for child sexual abuse material. The pornography sites, all the social media sites, the encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp just went encrypted on Facebook. So all these are ways
Mhm.
that the tech companies have gone unregulated, and they're just like supporting the expansion of online predation. So I really think parents need to do, technology holidays and find a balanced way, or monitoring and overseeing who they're interacting with,
Mhm.
because I think it's a dangerous space.
I was watching TV and I was listening to someone say that after, this 2-year period where everyone was kept at home, it created a lot of angry and people that did not want to socialize. And
Right.
it's very concerning. A lot of people are very social. And then when they were told you can't go anywhere, you got to stay home. And that just created a lot more anger we just didn't need.
Yeah, totally. And we're still recovering from that. And I hope revolutionary optimism can help people recover that sense of community and a positive way of interacting with others and being in loving, connected relationships and seeing and experiencing our interconnectedness,
Right.
which is actually a reality if we could only see it.
It can happen. People just have to try. They cannot have this apathy where they don't want to do anything about it. And
Yeah, I mean, it has to be an invitation and a readiness and a receptivity. So, I think there will be different people that are receptive and ready at different times. And, the more I talk about it, the more I'm finding a lot of like-hearted, like-minded people that agree and are ready and see the possibilities. Like I thought I was the only one with visions for transformation and healing at the scale that I'm talking. No, it's common. A lot of people have it.
Mhm.
A lot of people have a vision. And I think that was one of the things on the back of the book. It's about, like unlocking the vision and the optimism that we already know we have, you
Mhm.
know, and we're hiding it, like unleashing ourselves.
Well, and like you were saying earlier, it goes back to how you were raised and what you went through,
Hmm.
and you had to come through that trauma that you went through when you were a child.
I was blessed that I received a lot of love in my
Mm.
childhood from my mom and my sister. So there
Mhm.
was a counter force, or a love force that countered the trauma. And I had an amnesic barrier for 40 years. So obviously it was bad enough that I couldn't even consciously cope with it. But then when I did, and I was lucky, I got educated. I had And then I was like, I had this mind that was curious and kept investigating. And I figured this out actually in writing Revolutionary Optimism, is that like I was a victim, if you will, of the caste system of sexual violence, of oppression, of abuse, of verbal abuse and physical
Mhm,
abuse and
mhm,
sexual abuse. And I ended up being very quiet and watching this unfold in my family and in my life. And I was an observer of caste systems. And when I was like writing the book, I kind of realized, oh, that's why I have been like so dedicated to liberation movements
mm,
and movements for justice and human rights. I kind of figured it all out because it's all from that experience of oppression, and I see oppression and I see systems of oppression very vividly, and I believe, and I'm a healer, and I believe we can heal them. It's all
mhm.
healable.
And you have to think positive to do that. You can't just say,
Yeah,
"Well, that didn't work, so
yeah.
oh well," you know?
I have to be committed and courageous. And I talk about commitments in step one, and then, stepping into, and every action counts, taking action, being in action about it.
Mhm.
That is the formula, really.
Definitely. Now let me ask you this because I could talk to you all afternoon, but how
I
long did it take you to put this workbook together?
started it about 2 years ago and really intensively wrote it in this past year. I wanted to get it out as quickly as I could because I since 2024 was going to be a wild ride.
Yeah,
And I think going into even 2025, 26, 27, I think, as many people as can benefit from revolutionary optimism, I'm hopeful that it'll be a way that we can come together and help solve these major challenges that we're all facing.
definitely. And how can people find this workbook? How can they find
Yeah,
it?
the best place to go is revolutionaryoptimism.com. You can buy the book there through that on Amazon, either in a Kindle version or a paperback. And then if you fill out step two there, you can get free access to our Changemakers Companion Kit, which is a set of journal and workbook. It's daily emails with inspiring quotes and things like that. And we're going to create community around this. We want to support people on their journey of exploring revolutionary optimism.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Is there any last words you'd like to say?
No, thank you so much for your interest and for your guests. And please reach out to me. I'm happy to support anyone on their journey
Mhm.
of self-realization.
Well, I'd like to have you come back on in the future. Uh,
Thank you.
so, hey, don't jump off. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. Child Protective Services cases are among the most frightening experiences any parent can endure. Don't face them alone. With Urgent Assist by CPS Protect, you get the peace of mind to raise your children as you see fit. With the personalized assistance of their team of expert welfare consultants, former CPS investigators themselves, right when you need it. Get started absolutely free at cpsprotect.com/register. This is available in all 50 states. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, Anchor FM, other platforms I don't even know about, and feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Dr. Paul Zeitz, and I'll have you back.
Thank you so much. Have a great week.
You too.